Hi. So today we'll start discussing on qualitative research techniques. So basically, whenever we want to understand the underlying reasons or motives behind certain decisions consumers take, whether it can be purchase decisions on, or let's say we are doing certain kind of social campaigns, some like why some people give charity and why someone doesn't give charity, right? So even in those kind of situations, we can use to understand the underlying behavior, underlying motive, right? So in those cases, we can use qualitative research. So again, qualitative research basically are of two types: direct and indirect. Direct is basically when before starting the research, we tell the objective to the respondent, right? Let's say we are conducting a focus group or in-depth interview. So before starting the interview or before starting the focus group, we just brief them about the project, brief them about the research we are doing. But sometimes what happens, once people know that okay, this is the subject. Let's say I want to understand like how why people prefer premium mobile phones, like let's say Apple iPhone. So in that case, what happens? People will be defensive once they know the research objective or what kind of questions are going to come. They may be little defensive answering, or they may tweak their answers. So in those cases, we may not give the detail, give not even in the question itself will disguise what kind of research we are going to do. So in those kind of in disguised from the kind of research which we do, where we do not tell the research objective to the respondent in front before starting the research, we do not tell. In those cases, we can use projective techniques. So we'll discuss focus group discussions first, then go up to in-depth interviews, and the last we'll discuss on projective techniques. Focus group discussion. I guess all of you know what is basically a focus group, just a kind of a repetition of the concept. So it is basically when a moderator selects 8 to 10 respondent having common characteristics, maybe from the same similar socioeconomic demographic background, and maybe through an online forum or preferably in a offline area, like where in a room people may be seated, and I'll just brief them about the topic, brief them about the research objective, then we'll discuss. So then the discussion will start. It happens maybe around for 90 to 120 minutes, 8 to 12 participants. As a moderator, if I am moderating that kind of focus group, my intention is to get answer for 8 to 10 specific questions, right? In some cases, let's say people divert and start discussing something else, then I will ensure that they come back again, discuss on those specific points. So as a moderator, my job will be to drive them, or to, like let's say, motivate them to discuss on those certain points or certain key points where I need the answers. Okay. Focus group, so that is basically a single focus group, right? So I am a moderator, one moderator per group conducting focus group only once. So that is a classic focus group or a single focus group. Two-way focus group is a kind of a interesting kind of a approach to focus group discussion. So what happens, let's say I just want to understand right now, due to this COVID-19 pandemic, most of the like university have started this online classes, right? What are the opinions, or what are their feedback, student feedback, I want to understand. So I can go about conducting, let's say, few focus group with student. The other approach will be in the terms of two-way focus group. So let's say I will conduct 10 separate student focus groups. For each of those focus group, there will be a teacher, there will be a faculty who will be the moderator, right? So they are basically the moderator in the first stage, where they are conducting those focus groups among students, and they will discuss about their feedback about the online classes, what they liked, what they did not like, what are the kind of changes we need to bring in online classes. Once that happens, once that completes, then I'll take those 10 faculty colleagues of mine and conduct a focus group among them. So they will discuss on the feedback they received in the earlier focus group. So two-way focus group is basically kind of two-step, right? In the first step, we conducted focus groups among students. So moderators were those faculty colleagues of mine. Then in the second step, I'll conduct a focus group along with those 8 or 10 faculty colleagues, right? So that's how two-way focus groups happens. Dual moderator focus group happens when the second moderator, so the dual moderator, as you know, there will be two moderators per focus group. So the one moderator is basically discussing, or like kind of a probing around regarding the topics regarding about the discussion point. The other moderator is basically transcribing or taking notes, right? So that is how dual moderator focus group work. In the dueling moderator focus group, in again, like there are two moderators, but what happens is sometimes if let's say the majority of the respondent are talking about similar or have similar viewpoints, other one or two members may not discuss or may not bring opposite point of view, right? So they may get marginalized, right? So in that case, what happens if I know the situation may arise in those cases, one person will be taking, one moderator will be deliberately taking opposite direction. So let's say I want to discuss about the like current, like let's say steps taken by the government to like kind of mitigate those COVID-19 pandemic situation, right? Or to fight the COVID-19 pandemic situation. So let's say out of 10 respondent, 8 respondent talk positively about the topic, that whatever steps government has been taken, that is very good and well appreciated. The other two people, if they have different viewpoints, they may not talk, right? So in that case, what will happen, the other moderator, one of the moderator will be talking positively about the steps which government has taken. The other moderator may bring some negative points, negative aspects of the steps government has taken. So what may happen that the respondent, those few respondents who were earlier not talking about the different opposite viewpoints, they may talk. Next one is respondent moderator. Respondent moderator is somewhere where let's say I do not have access to that kind of village or that kind of area. So what may happen that the respondent, let's say some focus group is a very interior area. I may not go there. So what may happen that I may train a respondent to be the moderator of the group. So the let's say village sarpanch or the village head can be become the moderator of the group and conduct the. So one of the respondent can become the moderator of the group. Next one is client participant. So sometimes what happens, the like kind of the corporate which has been sponsoring the focus group or which is sponsoring the marketing research project, he or she may be one of the manager, he or she may be willing to participate in that focus group. Let's say they want to launch a new product. So because he or she will be in a better position to discuss about the product, right? Apart from the moderator. So he or she may join as a client moderator, client participant group. Okay. Mini groups is basically when the focus group only have 4 to 5 participants. Generally, focus groups would have 8 to 12 participants. In case we have only, we could not get that many participants. If it is a less than 5, less than 6 members, then we can call it as a mini group. Tele session is basically nothing but audio. If you are doing a focus group over a conference call, no video output, no video recordings, in that case, it is a tele session focus group. If both video and audio kind of recordings are there and we are doing, let's say, maybe Skype, Google Hangout, Google Meet, or Zoom platform, in that case, it can be a electronic group interview, right? Next one is in-depth interviews. So in-depth interviews is again kind of a unstructured. So there are kind of different aspects or different types of in-depth interviews: structured, semi-structured, unstructured. On technique wise, there are basically 4 techniques of in-depth interviews: laddering, hidden issue questioning, symbolic analysis, critical incident technique. So laddering, as you know, ladder is something where which we use, which helps us to go up or move down, right? So sometimes what happens, product characteristics, why I am using a product, it's associated most of the times with the user characteristics as a person, who am I, right? So it helps companies to understand that user characteristics, because in that case they can use the same cluster of people, they can carry out cluster analysis, they can provide some advertisement or provide some benefits to those group of people. Let's say if I'm using a Harley Davidson bike, so if the question is why did you purchase that bike? Let's say in India the on-road price for the basic model start with 5 lakh or 5.5 lakhs, right? So if the question is why did I buy a Harley Davidson bike? So I may say that okay, I feel the kind of power of that bike, or I feel that freedom. The next question can be why power, or being in power, or having that freedom to ride that kind of powerful bike is essential to you. So I may say that it makes me feel good, it makes me confident, or it makes me like powerful, right? So again somebody, the like interviewer may ask why that is again important to you, right? So it is basically why you have to keep asking that question of why. To understand, like we'll start with the product characteristics, and then one by one or by deep diving we'll get into user characteristics. Hidden issue questioning is basically something like where we all of us have certain kind of fantasies, certain kind of phobias, right? If a researcher wants to understand that, right? So in that case, like let's say there is a kind of a fan base for Lord of the Rings, fan base for Game of Thrones, Star Trek, right? So each of them have certain kind of association with those kind of TV serials or fantasy novels, right? If a researcher wants to understand that, then they can employ hidden issue questioning. Next one is symbolic analysis. Symbolic analysis is basically that product or that service, how important to you as a symbol, right? If that product or that service was not there, then what would have happened? If I ask you, let's say if I take your smartphone from you, what will happen? Or how will you feel about that, right? Because right now in today's world, for most of us, smartphone is basically kind of has become a kind of a family member or closest friend, right? We are spending much more time with those phones in our hand, right? So if I take that out, so basically if I take that mobile phone out, if you do not have a mobile phone, then what will be your reaction, right? How will you feel? So because that mobile phone is kind of a symbol for you, right? It may have become certain kind of family member or your closest friend. Critical incident technique is sometimes what happens. Let's say if I give you an example, if I am writing an email, rather than writing an email to a single person, I wrote to all the in my company, I wrote to every one of them. Let's say it was a confidential email, right? So it becomes a critical incident both for the company and both for me also, right, as a professional level. So to avoid that, the companies, let's say Gmail or Outlook, they created a feature where before sending an email, one automated question will come and ask, "Do you want to send this email to everyone?" Right? So how they will know about this? Because they also conduct this kind of critical incident questioning, critical incident technique questioning, where they come to know about this critical incident and try to avoid those critical incident whenever somebody is using their product or services. Next one is projective techniques. Projective techniques, like we discussed in the beginning, it is an indirect technique, so that I am not telling you the exact motive, exact objective of my research. So that's why the researcher has to take care of. So this is basically kind of a complex method where the researcher has to be experienced, has to have that kind of background to conduct this kind of research. Association is basically if I want to understand something about how you associate Apple iPhone with what kind of image, what kind of personality. I'll show you different mobile phones and you have to attach some personality to it. So whether it is somebody is a business person or somebody is a young footballer or a tennis player, if I give you certain images with certain mobile phones, how customers are associating. Construction you can takes in the same way. If I give you show you a image of different product, different kind of keywords, how you are going to construct a story, construct a line from that image. If I show you Apple iPhone, OnePlus, Samsung Galaxy, and tell you to write a story, write a one liner, two liner about what that phone or what that product is talking to you. Completion, in a sense, again, like I'll just write a sentence or write a story, write a paragraph, and you need to complete on that. So basically the customer or the respondent will be completing that story, completing that sentence about that product, right? Again, we have to always, like I said, it is a indirect technique. We have to ensure that if I'm conducting for a certain product, certain brand, I am mixing it with other products, other brands, so that customer is unaware, still remains unaware about the product or service for my research objective. Next is expressive, where expressive people, I ask people to play a role or draw something, right? How they expresses about that product or service, right? If I ask you to draw about your mobile phone, how you are drawing, it is not about what you draw, how you are drawing that mobile phone interests me, right? Next one, last one is choice ordering. If I give you different features of a kind of a product and I'll ask you to order them, right? So it is not same as the rank ordering, or it I'm not running certain kind of a factor analysis. I just want to know how you order them feature wise, right? for different product, different services. Again, like our motive is not to give a direct product service,